Welcome to the Better Together podcast, where we look for ways we can work together to advance the gospel of Jesus Christ. Today, we have with us longtime educator, Dr. Greg Ketteman. So he first worked in the public schools here in the state of Tennessee. Then he went to Welch College, where he's worked with the teacher education program and many other programs. And Dr. Ketteman, you have done so many things. Now you're in a whole different arena there at Welch College, aren't you?
Yes, sir. Yes. It's almost like starting over again in some ways.
Well, a lot of initiatives, and we'll talk about that here in a bit, but you've done a lot of work over the years. Before we get into that, though, you know that from your own experience that being a teacher, being a principal in this public school system in particular, it can be quite a place of outreach, quite a place to be salt and light for the Lord, can't it?
I think maybe more so than many roles that we might take on. It's remarkable at how many connections education has in the community.
So a lot of times we think, oh, the school system is going to be antagonistic toward us as people of faith, but increasingly, and back in the time when you were there, it was actually an asset and something that people really wanted in their system.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's probably overblown. There probably are some districts that are antagonistic, but I think for the most part, when you get down to the level of the building principal and to that faculty and to the parents in that community, I think they really are. They're really glad to have a Christian person working in a role like that with their children.
And so when you were in that role, you rose all the way up to become a principal, which is a major responsibility. A lot of students, also a lot of parents and faculty that you're interacting with, but simultaneously you were able to be involved in ministry as well.
Right. I really felt like I was a music minister who supported my job as music minister by being an educator. And the school system paid my ticket, so to speak, to be able to do what I really enjoyed in being a director of music at Cross Timbers.
So throughout the week, you're doing things to often get ready for what happens on Sunday, and then doing a lot of work on Sunday as a music minister. But your health insurance, a lot of your retirement, and your salary, the school system was actually paying for that.
That's right. And you know, the thing about my education, I didn't get a graduate degree just because I was greedy. I mean, if I was greedy, I wouldn't have been in education to start with.
Yeah.
But what it allowed me to do was to have some opportunities. And that degree, I had graduated in 1977. I got my master's degree in 1981. What happened, and I'm looking back over, a lot of years, it has compounded over the years for what I have been able to do. What I've been able to do, just in terms of paying the bills, but also in terms of what I've been able to do in volunteer ministry and what I've been able to do as a person who really believes in tithing. I am enjoying even now the opportunity to do some things that we never dreamed we could do to contribute to some worthwhile things that are happening in our church and in the college here, in the community. So it compounds over the years. I mean, if you think you're going to make a 10, 15, in some cases, more than 15% increase in your salary, and you multiply that over a career, you multiply that over 30 years or 40 years, that makes a big difference to a person in what they're able to do to support God's work. And ultimately, as I look back on it, that's been the case in our lives. And it's not because of our, that we did anything special. It's just that God, I think, has chosen to bless that. So I'm very thankful for that. It's one of the most fulfilling things about earning a graduate degree to me is what I've been able to do because of that.
So I think what I hear you saying is you didn't go and get a master's degree to say, hey, I've earned a master's degree, or go and earn a doctorate degree to say, hey, now everybody needs to call me doctor. No, each time it helped you to, it improved your salary situation there where you were at in the state of Tennessee, but it also created opportunities for you to be a administrator, and that was something they needed and they expected. And as you did it, your salary ended up increasing, and you're able to tithe off that. You're able to provide on your family, for your family, and do ministry as well.
Yeah, that's a good summary. It really has made I sort of have enjoyed the fact that I have not had to rely on anybody except the taxpayer.
Yeah.
Because, my salary has been paid that way. And so it hasn't come from some other source. It's come from, I have a pension benefit that comes along with being a state employee. And that's a wonderful blessing as well. So there are some downsides to being employed in the public sector, but I think they're far outweighed in terms of what we can do as Christians. I think they're far outweighed by the benefits.
And so a lot of times people will say things like, oh, well, you're not going to make any money in education. And truly, there are far other sectors that you make more money in. But I think what I'm picking up from you is the money that you were able to make in the public sector allowed you to do ministry and has allowed you to give back to the Lord's work. And if I jump to where you're at right now, it looks to me like you're continuing on with that, making it possible for other people to advance themselves, whether it be their influence of ministry, but also their ability to give back to the Lord's work financially through like this MAT program, Master of Arts in Teacher Education.
Absolutely. I think one of the things in the back of my mind about this program is growing people so that they can take a similar pathway of being able to, through being heavily involved in their church and through being people who are committed to supporting the church with their tithes and giving beyond that. I think that's one of the big things behind it for me, is that we're reproducing people who can do that, and that'll be great blessings to whatever church they're in, whatever community they're in. There'll be a great blessing because of that.
So we have listeners from all kinds of backgrounds, all points in their life. First thing I pick up from what you've said is, do not push people away from education. It's a place to have a good influence. If you become a teacher, you become a principal or a school counselor or some other position. The other thing is, no, you may not make as much money as some people do. However, the salary ends up being especially helpful when you've earned advanced degrees.
Yes.
There may even be a couple of pastors out there that are like, man, my church could use some help. And the school also is asking for help. They too could look at bivocational, as you did. You were working as a minister of music, but also as a teacher and later as a principal and so forth. They too could do that. And it sounds like the Master of Arts in Teaching is an avenue for all of these people.
I can give you a great example. I think you're spot on with what you're saying. And we had a man who was a pastor in this community. He came back to school. His undergraduate major was history. He came back to school and completed his graduate degree here at Welch. And he's now teaching history in the school system here in our county. And they love him. And he's a pastor, but he also has that opportunity to integrate with high school students, for them to know him, to know his testimony, to know what kind of person he is, what he does. And people in the community recognize this a man of high integrity, and they know what he's about. but he's also a good history teacher.
Yeah.
So he is helping his church because there's a, it's difficult for churches to always do everything they want to do for their pastor. Well, this gentleman, if the church can't do everything they want to do, it's not going to damage his ability to pay the bills. He's going to be fine. He doesn't have to totally rely on that for for his income. And then there are a lot of community contacts that he has because of his role in one of the high schools here. And so I think it really gives him opportunities that he wouldn't have otherwise.
So we're talking about how America has really, church attendance has dropped drastically. And so I think I'm picking up from you, this particular teacher is, yes, he's a pastor, but he's also able to be in the school system, and he's interacting with people that don't naturally visit his church. And so he's able to make contacts, and who knows where that could lead through this teaching job.
That's right. That's exactly right. It's easy to underestimate what that means and how many people that will influence. It's sometimes we write it off because it's teaching. It's not an easy job. And when you go into a public school district, your faith is going to be tested. You're going to be challenged. So we don't try to sugarcoat that with people. But at the end of the day, my position would be that it's worth the effort that we make to do that, because on the other end we have opportunities to share our faith with people. We know we can't evangelize a public school, but on the other hand, do we evangelize when we're there and when we're sharing our faith with our friends and people that know us? And eventually students find out. Students know who you are. You have opportunities to share your faith with students. And when I coached in middle school, where I was a coach of several teams, my students would ask me all the time about what I believed and about my faith. And if they asked me, I told them the truth.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's probably, sometimes people underestimate the opportunity that we have because they look at it and say, that's difficult.
Yeah.
And with great challenge, with great difficulty comes great opportunity.
That's right. And so there's all kinds of stereotypes about Christianity. When one of them is your history teacher or your principal,
that's right.
It's hard to hold on to those false stereotypes. And so it's a good thing, it sounds like, for somebody that's looking at bivocational ministry, as you did and as this other pastor has done. However, it's pretty cool for a regular public school teacher as well, isn't it? Because they are able to enhance their skill set through the Master of Art in Teaching, and usually they're going to get a raise for that particular degree.
They typically, as I mentioned earlier, I think some of the latest research is maybe 10 to 15%. It's what most people, in some states, they get more than that. But I really, I feel like that people need to be strongly advised to go ahead and get that advanced degree as soon as they can. Because if they're looking at a 30-year, in many cases, 40-year career, 50-year career, think about how much that multiplies over time. It compounds as they increase their career. And so I think the earlier they can get an advanced degree like that, the more they're going to be glad they did, the more effective they can be in many, many ways. So, and that doesn't mention the qualitative part of it.
Yes.
You don't want to just think about the money, but a person who does a graduate degree in education will be a better teacher.
Yeah.
They will understand some things about their craft. Teaching, there are scientific things about teaching, but it's also an art. And if anytime you engage in an art, it takes a lot of practice. It takes experience to be really good at it. And so when you engage in a graduate program, you're practicing that craft You're learning those skills that make you a better teacher. So not only are you going to get a raise, but you're going to be a better teacher. And in a Christian program, you're integrating faith into what we have a really great course. It's called Philosophy of Education, and it's taught by Dr. Andy Ball. Now, Andy Ball is a Christian philosopher, but you know what? I wish I had had that course when I was in college. But it integrates the foundations of our faith with what we think about as it relates to how we are as educators, how we teach, how we think about education. And so not only does it help us to have more quality as a teacher, but it helps us as a Christian teacher specifically to integrate our faith into what we're doing.
So there's a reason the state gives a teacher a raise for getting an MAT program. It's not out of the goodness of their heart, really. It's because you are a better teacher. It contributes.
I believe if you come through a good program,
a
rigorous program that really focuses on the right things, yes, you'll be a better teacher because you're engaged in a graduate program.
And they're all about student outcomes and how students perform on end of grade or end of year test and all the rest of it. So there's a reason for that. So it helps you, it helps the students. You could say it helps the school. A lot of our folks that are listeners, they're teachers in Christian schools, or they're going to be teachers in Christian schools. The MAT program can be helpful to them as well.
Oh, listen, I think that they may be the people that benefit the most from it because their school may not have the kinds of resources to allow them to have professional development the way that they would like to. And so by engaging in a graduate program, you're getting that. You're getting that iron sharpening iron, working with other educators, thinking beyond just what's happening right now, but how things could be improved in your craft, in your teaching, how things can be improved in your school. I'll give you a quick example. We have several students have gone through the special education track. They weren't looking for licensure. They're in Christian schools. But what they are saying to me is, we don't have anything for exceptional students in our school. And we feel like we should, that we encounter this where we have a student that we say, well, we can't enroll them because we don't have the resources. We can't support their enrollment in our school. And so they have gone through the special education track because they want to bring some of those things into what's happening in that Christian school. And I've even encouraged several of them to write some things and submit it to our denomination about ways that Christian schools can begin to involve students with special needs in their schools, creating some opportunities for those students and those families to be a part of a Christian school. And so I think it may be even more valuable for people in Christian schools to get a graduate degree.
Well, I'm noticing some of your students who have gone through the MAT program, sometimes in Christian schools, become principals in those particular school systems. So it clearly helped them to get prepared for the next level, and the school system obviously noticed that to do that for them.
Yeah, we just had a lady from North Carolina, and that was her experience. She completed the master's degree. We call it instructional leadership. There's a track for people that want to be principals. And when she finished that, I mean, she had the ink hadn't dried on her diploma, and they made her principal of a pretty good sized Christian school.
Yeah.
So, she was seeking training to be prepared for that role, and the school acknowledged that, and they promoted her.
So I'm listening, maybe for myself or for someone else. I want to pursue this MAT program. I like what you guys are saying. I've already have an undergraduate degree. What do I need to do?
Well, you need to enroll today. You need to go to our website, or you need to go to and I'm prejudiced. I want them to come to Welch. I say that when we have students that come in here and they're here for a recruiting visit, I say, I hope every one of you comes here
Mm-hmm.
We go across the street to the high school across the street, and we get a chance to talk to their juniors and seniors, and I say, I wish every one of you, I think all of you should come. But really, I want to temper that by saying you need to do what God is directing you to do. But so you need to pray carefully about what He wants you to do and ask Him how you can best serve as a Christian in education, and how that can help you to best serve in His kingdom, and particularly in your local church. But if they're ready to start today, there's no reason they can't start in a class in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
We have a first course half off thing going on right now. So the sticker price is about $15,000. So let's just get that off the table, or on the table. I don't know, maybe get it off the table. But don't let the sticker price frighten you, because there are some scholarships available. So in particular, I know our audience here, there are a lot of Free Will Baptist folks in our audience. There's a scholarship for people who are part of our movement, who are members in our Free Will Baptist churches. If you're a Christian school teacher, there's a scholarship for those individuals. If you had a good undergraduate, there's an academic merit scholarship. And there's other loans and grants that are available for people through financial aid. So there are ways that you can earn this degree. We've had students that finished in 18 months. We've had other students, the lady that we were talking about, who was promoted to principal in her Christian school, it actually took her 3 years, because she said, I can't take that pace. I'm going to have to take a slower pace. And so the slower pace helps you in terms of all the responsibilities you've got, but it also helps you in terms of how you, if you want to fund it and come out with no debt, well, then taking that slower pace may make it possible for you to do that. We've had other people that they took more courses in the summer. They said, I'm a teacher. It's harder for me in the fall and the spring, but I can take an extra course in the summer. So there's a lot of ways that you can approach it to make it feasible in terms of your time and in terms of your resources.
That's good. So it's good for your professional development. That's going like the little bit of a slower route. You're putting it's becoming more part of you along the way. And the student you mentioned that became the principal is she's integrating that into her classroom all the step of the way, and administration is starting to figure out where she would be. But it also helps you keep the debt down. And you mentioned the $15,000 sticker price. That goes back to, if I get a raise at this point, then what does that mean over the course of my career? And this is a situation where the degree pays off. It really does.
If you didn't get any of the scholarships,
then
if you just think, okay, I'm going to get maybe a 15% raise, and then just divide. So just say I've got the sticker price and I divide it. In most cases, it's 4 or 5 years, and the degree has paid for itself.
That's great.
So I know it's different in different schools, and maybe the pay scale is a little different in the Christian schools, but in the long run, usually in about 4 or 5 years, you whatever increase in salary you have will pay off whatever it costs you to do the degree.
That's good. So if you want to learn more, go to welch.edu. They could also email you, couldn't they?
Yes.
gketteman@welch.edu, and we'll spell that GKEE or GKETTEMAN @welch.edu, right?
That's right.
So drop Dr. Ketteman a line, ask him a question. You could always call him. You can see his phone number there on the website. Hey, what about this, Dr. Ketteman? What about that? You'd be glad to answer any questions they might have, wouldn't you?
I think we provide, it's fair to say that what we do, it's individualized. So everybody that applies, it's not like herding cattle. It's a very individualized approach. And don't assume that it's impossible given your schedule. Don't assume that it's impossible, because There have been a lot of people. If you think you've got a busy schedule, if you think you're challenged for resources, I can tell you somebody that was had a more difficult, and they made it.
Yeah.
So you can do it. If you feel God's calling you to do that, you can do it.
So if you're interested, I encourage you to reach out to Dr. Ketteman, go to welch.edu or send him an email and pray about it, see what the Lord would have you to do. But what a good opportunity to be salt and light, whatever the setting may be that you're at, and what a wonderful way to use the skill set, the talents God's instilled in you. So, Dr. Ketteman, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you. I know we're getting tight, but I want to make one more plug for Welch.
Yes.
They know I want them to come here. I really want them to be here. But the director of the schools here in the district, I was sitting by him in a panel the other day, and I noted that many of our students were getting jobs here in the district. And he interrupted me on the panel, and to the audience, he said, "And we'll take every one of them that graduates."
There you go.
And it was an unqualified statement.
Yeah.
And so our teachers are much in demand.
Yeah.
So people recognize that this is a quality program, and you won't get a better quality program. So I appreciate the opportunity to brag on our program a little bit.
Absolutely. And we appreciate you taking the time to be with us.
Thank you, Dr. Moody.
Thank you. And hey, we want to thank you, our listener. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. We encourage you to take it, share it with someone that you think might benefit. And remember, every little thing you do, it really does matter. When we work together, we truly do advance the gospel of Jesus Christ. We're better together. Thank you for joining us today. All right, buddy. I'm thinking we need to do. All right, here we go. You ready?
As much as I'm ever going to be.
Hey, what is your title?
I'm the Vice President for Strategic Initiatives and the Graduate Dean.
I'm going to do my best on that one. Okay. Welcome to the Better Together podcast, where we look for ways we can work together to advance the gospel of Jesus Christ. Today, we have with us Dr. Greg Ketteman. You may know him from his history working in teaching, and then being a principal, and then going to Welch College. And now he's head of strategic initiatives and the graduate school dean there at Welch College. So he's had a real storied history. So Dr. Ketteman, we want to thank you for your good work, and also for taking the time to be with us today on this podcast.
Thank you, Dr. Moody. I appreciate the opportunity to join you.
Now, I know, and we've talked to you in the past in podcasts about the Master of Arts in Teaching program and how important teaching is, and both in public schools and also in Christian schools. But today you're going to talk to us about a master's degree in organizational leadership, right? So,
yes,
fairly new program for Welch College, but a really good program. You've already have students in it. Maybe help our listeners know a little bit about why someone might be thinking of getting a Master of Arts in Organizational Leadership.
We have a lot of people who have leadership roles in for-profit and nonprofit organizations. We have people who have leadership roles in denominational and church organizations, church-related organizations. We have people that are leaders in their own business. They've established their own business, or they are working in some role in local or state government. And so people are leaders. The Christians should be leaders wherever they are. But some people have informal leadership in an organization, and all of us as Christians have an obligation to be salt and light, and there's a leadership quality to that. But there are others of us who have a formal role in leadership in our organization. So we recognize that there are men who specifically trained to be pastors of our church, for instance. But this would also equip someone to come alongside that pastor and to be someone who was trained in working with finances and with understanding the operation of an organization, with understanding something about leadership, a person who could teach, who could mentor people, who could be someone who is a leader with a group of deacons or in a men's group. There's all kinds of opportunities that we have within organizations to be leaders. In some cases, the training that we need to have is required by an organization. So if we work in some bureaucracies, we need to have an advanced degree to be able to be considered for promotion to a different position. So, for instance, people that work in the state of Tennessee in state government, in many roles that they could apply for, they would have to have a master's degree. And so this might be of great interest to those individuals.
So that's the first thing that kind of comes to my mind. It feels like almost any director position in state government requires a master's degree. And so you're really designing, it sounds to me like, you're meeting that need with this degree.
It's very broadly conceived, but yes, it would meet that need for people who were in, they had jobs in those areas. And again, the idea is for them to bring a Christian worldview to bear on their responsibilities as leaders in whatever organization they're serving in. So and we recognize also that there's both an art and a science to leadership. I can't put a formula in place for everything about being a leader. Because there's an art to that. There are formulas that help you. There are these practices that we can say these are the best practices for an organizational leader. But then there's also this art of leadership that requires thought, and it requires experience, and it requires practice. And so a graduate degree in that area advances those skills for people.
So if I'm kind of put together what you're saying, it sounds like there's basically three different areas where you're trying to train people. So obviously the church, Welch College has had a long history with church, and we think about even denominational leadership. So that's one area. We mentioned the government, there's another area. And a third would be, you mentioned earlier, the nonprofit sector. So people that run things like YMCAs and all kinds, like homeless type agencies or any of these nonprofits. So really there's three different areas, and you often have to have a master's degree to do many of those particular jobs. It sounds like you're also trying to give, okay, there's an art to it. There's also certain information you have to have, but it also sounds a bit like you cater your degree to the person, whether they're interested in, we left out business, or I left that out, whether they're nonprofit, business, or church, or government, you kind of cater the degree a little bit to the person's interest.
Yes. The good thing about the degree is that a person who, let's say, for instance, they are being tapped to lead in a certain area of a church ministry. We can tailor the degree so that that individual might do a project or a paper near the end of his program or her program that really would be very practical. The project might even involve the church or the Christian organization that they're serving in. So they're sort of killing two birds with one stone by trying to apply some of what they've learned, trying to seek out some areas in their organization that they could shore up, or that they could, maybe ministries that they could start, things that they can improve in their organization. So yes, that part of the program is very much tailored to what it is that the area that person is serving in.
So our listeners hear this. Yes, I can earn a degree, but actually this is a way to work on a problem, or to make to address some sort of issue in the organization that you're working in. You've got a lot of feedback, you've got a lot of help, a lot of guidance as you're going through. This project counts for academic credit, but it's addressing something either where do you work or where do you minister. It's truly practical in that standpoint, hands-on type.
Very much so. Yes, we have an individual in the program now who is working in a denominational organization and has already begun to structure, to outline the project
Mm-hmm.
that will take place. And we encourage them to do that early. We
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty much after they've had a course or two, we want them to have in mind what is it that you want to begin to apply some of your learning and some of your study within your organization, so that that can be a culminating project that they do.
Mm-hmm. So if that person designs things well, even as they go through the coursework, they're kind of thinking that way, and it's helping them address the issues where at their workplace. So you've got that kind of person. And then you've got other people that, like, okay, I'm working in a particular setting, but I know I'm going to need a master's degree to go to the next level. They could be doing something from that standpoint as well, couldn't they?
Yes, a person that was going on, and let's say they were looking to get a terminal degree, they could write a thesis. So we have that option for them to study the literature, to be doing some deep thought, some research about particular topics within leadership, and they could create a graduate thesis at the end of their program instead of the project.
So I hear you, and I'm thinking, hey, I want to pursue this. What kind of requirements are there as far as degree, undergraduate degree that they already have in hand, and then to try to be admitted into the program?
Well, the good thing about this degree is it's interdisciplinary. So it pulls together things from the humanities, from our instructional leadership track in the MAT program, from the Master of Arts in Theology and Ministry, the leadership program that's there. And so we're bringing together a number of disciplines for them. So the good thing is that if they have a bachelor's degree in any area, and they've had a reasonably good rate of success, then they're eligible for this program. So if they've got a degree in history, or they've got a degree in Bible, or they've got a degree in business, all of those are fine. Those are fine foundations for getting admitted to this program.
So you don't have to say, oh, no, I don't have a specific undergraduate degree in such, so I've got to go and do extra prerequisite courses. Probably your degree, assuming you did fairly well in it, is acceptable to go ahead and apply and try to go ahead and study the meat of this degree, if you will, leadership.
That's true. In fact, just to share, I'm going to reveal something about what you just said. I prefer that.
Uh-huh.
I like the idea of having people from different disciplines coming together in these courses, because they're able to see things about organizational leadership because they're sharing with one another. So they hear it from the perspective of the guy that's in the big corporation that's a divisionalized form, and they hear it from the guy that's in the startup, the nonprofit organization that's doing something. They hear it from the guy that's doing community work, or he is involved in as a leader in a church. So they get a lot of different perspectives, and it helps them to refine their thinking about leadership in general, but specifically it helps them as leaders in their own area.
So they get the different perspectives, and you also mentioned earlier, but they're getting it from a Christian perspective.
Well, that's true. Your peers, they're your Christian peers.
Mm-hmm.
Your teachers, they're Christian teachers. The perspective that you're getting is not one that's just strictly secular.
Mm-hmm. And you may be looking at secular writings and so forth, but you're also looking at how the Bible speaks to that particular issue and getting that from other folks within the classroom and the professor.
That's exactly right. For many people, it's their first experience with reading literature from another discipline and reading literature at a graduate level. So, but we take them into that we don't we don't try to drown them. We dunk them into it, but we don't let them drown. They're being introduced to some things that may, in many cases, they haven't read, they haven't seen before, but we know it's going to be really beneficial to them as leaders.
And they can go at their own rate, can't
Yeah.
they?
Some of my favorite courses in the program, though, really consider the examples out of history, the examples of leadership, and there are many of them. Christian leaders, especially, that we can look back at and we can examine what they did, and then we can take some lessons for that for our own experience, for our own lives. So that's one of my favorite things about the program is that we examine that. In fact, we have a course that's coming up that's entitled Studies in Leadership. And so I think that's going to be, and it looks at various leaders, the lives of various leaders, and we read about them and we discuss what they did that made them successful. And it's from a multiple places, many different, it's not just one area where we look at those leaders, but we look at them from many different areas through history.
That sounds interesting. Well, hey, I'm listening. I want to pursue this program or learn more about it. What do I do?
So go to welch.edu and look at graduate programs, and you can find the Master of Arts in Organizational Leadership program. Click on that, and it says apply. If you do it now, we still have, I checked with Dr. Pinson about this, we still have a first course half off. So you're getting a kind of a scholarship there on that first course. You're getting a big scholarship, half off, 50% off. And so if you do that before the semester starts, our term begins in February. So our spring term begins then. And if you get enrolled before that, we'll honor that half off for your first course.
That's great. And they can always email you as well, couldn't they?
Absolutely. G. Ketteman at welch.edu. And it's Ketteman.
That's great. Hey, thank you, Dr. Ketteman. We appreciate you giving us your time, and we appreciate you putting such effort into this program. What a practical, helpful program this is that can help so many students out there.
Thank you, Dr. Moody. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss it, and I hope people, if they have questions, I hope they'll feel free to call us.
Excellent. Hey, and we want to thank you, our listener. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. And maybe you know someone that would benefit from this podcast. Please take it and please share it with them. Please like it on Facebook and in various social media formats. And remember that every little thing we do, it really does matter. It really does make a difference when we do it together because we are better together. Thank you for joining us today.